You had me at cello, cello. You had me at cello. You had me at cello. Oh, you had me at cello. Good evening, everybody. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. Almost time to get out that cello and practice all weekend long. But first, a cello chat interview. And today's cello chat, by the way, is brought to you by Kreutz Strings. Go to kreutzstrings.com and check out all their wonderful string-related, cello-related products. And they also, as you may well know, generously donated a bow for a drawing this evening, which we'll do after the interview. So thank you to Kreutz Strings. My guest this evening is Dr. Linda Jennings. I am absolutely thrilled to have her on the program. Linda, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Benjamin?
You know, I'm doing pretty darn well, actually. And I'm doing even better given that we're here talking together about music and practice and inspiration and motivation and all sorts of valuable things like that. But before we get into that, would you please tell the viewers a bit about yourself and your musical background?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the town, Whitewater, Wisconsin, that Benjamin lives in and teaches in, or lives near. And I grew up in a musical family. My mother, Geraldine Jennings, is a cellist. And my father is a voice professor who taught at the university that Benjamin teaches at now. And when I was about 6 years old, there was a little boy my age who took lessons with my mom. And I was very jealous that he got to spend all this time with my mom. So I asked to take cello lessons at that point. And to my mom's great credit, I studied with her in, first through 8th grade. I was not a great student. Motivation, I think, is one of the topics today, and that's a good topic because I remember I would sometimes come home and rearrange the music room and pretend I had practiced when I had not. So in my high school years, I studied with Janet Grieve up in Madison, and I also played in the youth orchestra there, which was really instrumental in getting me into more kinds of different music. For my undergraduate, I studied with Parry Karp at Madison, which was a great experience. For my master's, I went off to California and studied with Eleonore Schoenfeld at USC. Loved the weather out there. And then I came back to Madison for a little bit, and I knew I wanted to play cello, but I didn't really quite know how to do all of that. I studied with Uri Vardi in Madison for a while, and then when in doubt, go back to graduate school. So I went to UT Austin and had the great privilege of studying with Phyllis Young. And I taught in the String Project there, and eventually I directed the String Project for 2 years, which really was a pivotal experience for me as well. And then my first teaching job, I went all the way up to Fairbanks, Alaska, and taught at the university there for 2 years. And then I came down to Indiana, University of Pennsylvania, about an hour east of Pittsburgh, and I've been teaching there for about 20 years now.
Excellent, outstanding. And at IUP, as they abbreviate it, everything is acronyms in academia. You also have a string project there. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Sure. So I started a string project in 2004, just to continue the wonderful goals of supporting string education in the region. And it's I think one of the unique features at our school in the string area. So music majors teach all the lessons, and we have some ensemble classes usually at the end of semesters. And yeah, it's really turned out to be a great program and really gratifying to see the progress of the teachers as well as the young students.
Excellent. Now, I want to ask you one of the questions I've been asking everybody about what does motivate you and inspire you, but not that you have to go this direction, but I'm definitely going to throw in that whenever I hear you play, actually, two things to come to mind. I was definitely going to mention you have an amazing tone. You're this glowing, beautiful tone
Thank you.
Yeah, always delicious to hear. But also the musical everything being kind of a musically informed, directed line, making a line out of things. I don't think I've ever heard you necessarily play scales, for example, but am I right as far as these two at least being components of, if nothing else, I think they can be motivators for a lot of our students to have that delicious ear candy that we want to hear under our ear all the time, and also to be able to think of things in terms of always having a very meaningful musical line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. My studying with my mother, who was a cellist, her teacher in the 1950s was Leonard Rose. So I grew up listening to his recordings, and I just always loved his sound. I think he had sort of the epitome of the beautiful cello romantic sound. And I think probably for all of us, just the sound of our instruments is what motivates all of us. That's why we play that particular instrument. And I think also, especially when I was younger, it was a way to really sort of develop my voice in life. Certainly my musical voice, but just my voice in general. Music is just so filled with emotions, often emotions that are hard to put into words. So I think that was something that still inspires me today, is you connect with all these incredible emotions, really adds to your emotional life. So yeah, I think just the music itself too. Of course, we all love, the great canon of the cello literature and chamber music and orchestral pieces. Just the music itself is so inspiring, whether it's, Bach or something that was just composed recently. That in itself, I think, is so inspirational. And then I also keep listening to, all the great cellists that I love to listen to, and that always keeps me inspired. And I guess other inspirations, I've always loved the collaborative part of music. We spend a lot of time in practice rooms all by ourselves, perfecting our instrumental skills. But when you come together with another person to bring music to life, whether it's, duo playing with a pianist in a string quartet or a piano trio, those have been some of my most gratifying moments, I think, is working with others and then bringing that to an audience.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it, is there?
Yeah.
Now, okay, I have had the privilege of seeing you work with, for example, some of my students a couple times in achieving this, but can you talk to my current students who are viewing this and all the other people on this, watching this, about how some of the ways, I mean, I know the whole answer would take quite some time, but what are some of the general principles of the ways that you help a student of yours cultivate a tone that is just something that they take great pride in and really want to seek out on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm. I guess some ways that I approach that is, in more recent years, I really try to have them be involved in a deeper kind of listening, so that they can really sort of connect with that resonance. And again, that they can find their own personal connection to it. I mean, you're always guiding them, but once they can sort of find their concept of sound or their musical voice on the instrument, I find that that's incredibly motivating for them. I think also for them to help them connect to the emotions in the music. Sometimes, especially if it's a piece that they're maybe not so fond of, having them find a way to emotionally connect with it. And I find my students are they're so ingenious that I don't really have to do much. But just sort of remind them that they can, think through their life, what experiences they've had, and they don't have to tell me what it is, but then they can relate that to the music, and I think that brings it to life for them more. So it helps motivate them more as well.
Nice. Now, are there times, for example, with some
students of yours who are also teachers in the string project, where you know how it is, where when they are just a student and they're just looking at it through their particular mechanics of the way they bow and the instrument that they have in their hands, but then when you help them to teach somebody else how to achieve that, is that also another opportunity for those breakthroughs?
Yeah, I mean, I still find this every day that you're always learning through your students. So that's one of the most common comments that they have, is that they're what they're working on in their own lessons. They find that they learn a lot from their own students in that way as well. And I find a lot of our students come in and they're mostly undergraduates, and they're a little scared, a little timid of teaching, and but once they start connecting with the students, for many of them, it's been very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And for some who really didn't think that they wanted to go into teaching, once they've started it, that they're sort of hooked on it. So that's always very gratifying.
Neat. So you serve as catalyst to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Absolutely.
All right, so beyond a beautiful tone and a musical line that is meaningful and moving, what are some of the other things that inspire and motivate you, Dr. Jennings?
I guess in terms of my own playing and teaching, I've been very fortunate to have opportunities to play in different parts of the world. And when I've been in these different parts of the world, I've been able to explore their music as well. So that's been really inspirational. I've been able to go to Thailand and Indonesia and Haiti, and to be able to see the creative spirit in so many different forms in humans, it just boggles the mind. So I find music is a really great way to connect with different people and learn about different cultures as well.
Yeah. Well, and you don't only, I mean, I'm not saying that a lot of people necessarily do just go over and perform and come back, but I'm saying you really proactively plug into the musical culture there. You've gotten to work with the students in Thailand on a variety, and Haiti and such. So I don't know, it's like there's clearly something about what motivates you there as well. Want to talk about, like, or even just how you make these connections in order to be able to have these experiences?
Sure, yeah. Well, I think I always hate a good missed opportunity. So, and sometimes you can't do everything. So sometimes you have to let things go. But I think just being open to things and being able to step outside your comfort zone. Probably the most profound experience I have has been going to Haiti and teaching at music camps. The wonderful cellist Janet Anthony has done that for many years. So I did it sort of through her programs. And there it's just such a different culture. But to be able to experience their music as well as work with them in Western art music has been so inspirational. They have so little materially, but in terms of spirit and music, they're very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really an incredible experience. And then I've also had the opportunity to go to Indonesia and do some workshops there where I got to learn gamelan music and got to learn their two strings, Tarawangsa music, which is sort of like a rabob. And it's just fascinating to be able to delve into these different cultures and see how they connect to music and how music sort of functions for them very differently.
Yeah. But that sort of experiences like those, when you run across a student who is either just kind of not particularly on fire about their repertoire at the moment, or just kind of having one of those days, what are some ways that you kind of help them to think outside of their particular personal box?
Well, one thing I've been doing more and more over the past couple of years is simply asking more questions.
Mhm.
Of course, we're guiding students, but I find that by asking them questions, it helps them sort of think through some of their what they're going through. And often, we all get blocks every once in a while. So sometimes just thinking through that can be really helpful. And what I find is things come up that I never would have been able to explore before if I had guided every aspect of the lesson. So I try to get them involved in the conversation and especially try to get them to be curious about what's not working for them and not get so frustrated, because I think we all have that. And then to be very patient with oneself as you sort of work through those challenges.
Mhm.
And students, all of us go through periods where we're not as motivated or as excited to practice that day. Um, I guess I also try to use, different kinds of music and be more open to things that they want to play,
Mhm.
but also to broaden their understanding of the literature. And I've used some of your things that you use in your studio to do that, which have been really helpful. So they get to know, the concertos and the sonata literature, and some of them just haven't experienced that before. So that often gets them very excited too.
Nice. So removing some of the roadblocks for motivation, for example, roadblocks like if they know that they're just going to be impatient with themselves as they get frustrated over the same spot, or they have kind of stopped brainstorming new ways to put life into a particular passage. And um, is that fair to say that you're often removing such blockages to their otherwise?
Well, I think I'm helping them. They're the ones who ultimately are the only ones that can really remove those roadblocks for themselves. But trying to very gently maybe point out, because sometimes it's hard to see those roadblocks.
Mhm.
But then help by asking a lot of questions, helping them figure out why that's there and how to have a plan to get beyond that.
Mhm. Yeah, that is, I've definitely seen that when you've come to work with my students as well, which is great. It's so important. Now, I want to ask about projects and performances, irons you have in the fire, but just kind of, you mentioned Leonard Rose, for example, and then we took a little global tour. What are some of your favorite, either have you found some new gems of repertoire or some performers whom you're really into these days?
Well, I guess the performers that I tend to sort of gravitate towards are Stephen Isserlis, who I just love. I love Sol Gabetta, Zul Bailey, and I'm trying to get more familiar with some of the younger ones.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's so many great recordings out there. And then of course there's the canon of Rostropovich and Rose and all of those wonderful people too.
All right.
So
Okay, so now your projects, whether performing or teaching related or research, what are you up to?
well, I've actually been exploring some new things in my own playing, um, and working with more mindfulness techniques. That's sort of my background outside of cello playing, and sort of bringing that to cello playing. And at this point in my career, I can sort of pick and choose what I want to do. I don't really feel like so much pressure to play this concert or that concert. So I get to, so it's actually an incredible privilege. And so with these mindfulness techniques, it's helped me, it's sort of rejuvenated my playing, but it's also helped me get back past some of my own roadblocks, especially some tension that I've been carrying for a while that I've been trying to sort of work through. Um, and I've also been exploring more singing the cello parts and um, and relating that to my teaching as well. That helps a lot with intonation. And then I've also come across a sort of a method of phrasing that's called note groupings. And that really has been fascinating, and I think brought my phrasing to new levels. So I've really been sort of excited to just explore all of those things that I've not had a chance to up to this point. So yeah, so I have some programs coming up. You know, it does depend on COVID. When COVID is finally done, I do have some piano trios that were programs that we're going to be doing in England, maybe this March, but hopefully next fall. I also work with a Thai pianist, Chindarat Chirawangsa, who's in Oklahoma. But we also like to go back to Thailand, and I hope to get back there in the next couple years. And I've also been working with a youth orchestra in northern Thailand. And over COVID, I started giving them master classes virtually once a month. So we've been continuing with that. And I hope to get my string projects teachers and IUP string students to Thailand, hopefully in the next, I don't know, 2 to 3 years to work with that orchestra.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I mean, out of all those wonderful things, just that mention, for example, of the usefulness of singing. And it kind of also brought to mind some of the great cellists of the past, including Phyllis Young, who would have a bit of a buzz herself as she would hum along. I mean, she sang quite a bit during lessons, but she would also hum and vocalize when she played. And it's funny how the first time you experience that, you think, wow, that's odd. And then if you try it yourself, it just somehow the shapes of your melodies, and you know, you mentioned intonation, but just also the ability to change character or color or really nuance a melodic line. Here for singing.
Well, and for me, it comes sort of naturally because my dad was a voice professor. And at one point, I was sort of trying to choose between voice and cello. And I definitely chose the right one for me. So.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Dr. Jennings. It is a delight to visit with you always, always.
Oh, always great to see you too, Dr. Whitcomb.
Well, best of luck with the remainder of the semester and the year. And if nothing else, I'll be seeing you at the ASTA conference in March.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Won't that be fun?
That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let you go so you don't have to sit through the drawing.
Okay.
But thanks again, and take care.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye. Okay, so we have this wonderful bow. It's a hybrid of Pernambuco and carbon fiber, and I don't know how they do it. I mean, I know about it, I've played on it, and I'm quite impressed by it, but first time I heard about it, I was, really? At any rate, this is not the exact bow that I would be sending. You'd get a brand new one. But I do have one, and I find, I mean, especially for the price, it's a really excellent bow that should be explored. So that's, of course, the grand finale. So I'll draw the other things first. I have 4 CDs of mine. For one thing, maybe this is in part to kind of announce the 3rd CD, which should be coming out in hopefully about a month. And there may even be a 4th one in the spring. But at any rate, these are CDs number 1 and 2. CD number 1, the Bach suites 1, 3, and 5 with some Gabriele Reacher cars thrown in. And I have my nice little, it's not a hat, but it'll still work with all the names in there. And I'm drawing Andrew Sear. Andrew Sear gets one of these CDs. I'll keep those together. And then the other box CD will go to Linda Jennings. All right. So those are those two. Now the more recent one, the 20th century, trying to get the glare off of there. Bloch, Muczynski, and Reger. We have one of them going to Leah Angelikos. Congrats, Leah. Hope you like it. And the other one goes to Dylan Skiba. Then we have a couple books. We have the Compendium of Chords for the Cello, and that one goes to Frank Yolanga. All right, congrats, Frank. I hope you like it. And then the Advancing Cellist's Handbook goes to, mix them around some more, James White. James gets that. Okay, a couple more, I'm just trying to move it along here. The Cello Fingerings book goes to Celia Sirikit, gets the Cello Fingerings book. The big old tome, the Popper Hochschule Etudes book. You know, he could have written just 20 etudes, I'm just saying, but he wrote 40, and so it's a massive tome. And that one goes to Ricardo Chacon. So I'll send that out to you, Ricardo. Congrats. And then finally, the hybrid cello bow by Kreutz, kreuzstrings.com. Even if you don't get this, you should go there and go to kreuzstrings.com and ask them to send you one. It was have them send you all of their bows to try out and see which one works best for you. You see, now is the part of the program when you drag it out a little bit because there's only one more thing to draw. And the winner is Lauren Gabbies. All right, so Lauren gets the bow. It will be sent from Kreutz Strings. That's it. It's my first time to do a drawing. I hope you had fun. And I also hope you get a lot of practicing in this weekend. And we'll see you next Friday at 5 o'clock for the next Cello Chat. In the meantime, happy practicing.